Hi guys, Freddy here, welcome back to the desktop for another retro RPG. And this week I would like to present this, the West End Games Star Wars Shadows of the Empire Sourcebook for the second edition Star Wars role-playing game. Now this came out in 1996 as part of the Shadows of the Empire multimedia project. Now, sometimes I get told off in the comments below my videos for telling people things they already know. But I'm assuming that the multimedia project around Shadows of the Empire being 24 years old, there are a lot of people who watch these videos who won't be aware what it is. So, if you're not one of those people, if you know what Shadows of the Empire is, please skip on, go make yourself a cup of tea or something, as I'm going to talk for a couple of minutes about Shadows of the Empire. Shadow of the Empire was essentially Lucasfilm trying to do everything around a movie except make the movie itself. What they did was they came up with a story bridging the gap between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, detailing what happens when the rebels go after Han to a certain degree, the rise of Prince Zizor here, who is a crime lord who is trying to make Darth Vader look bad after the destruction of the Death Star and the escape of Luke Skywalker at Bespin, and trying to replace him as the Emperor's right-hand man. And that's the story. They released everything around it except the movie itself. Because there was a novelization, there was a CD soundtrack, there was a very good game on the Nintendo 64, which is the reason I bought an N64. I walked in the shop that day to buy a PlayStation, saw Shadows of the Empire playing on a screen, and walked out with an N64 instead. A decision I'm hugely pleased at. But they released other things as well. So they released a role-playing game sourcebook. They released comic books. They released spin-off stories. They did absolutely everything around Shadows of the Empire except making the movie. And it was a really interesting idea. There's, to a degree, it's something that Disney's doing with Star Wars these days with the new High Republic series, where they've created a new era and they're releasing everything around it. So there's going to be comics and there's going to be novels and everything around that era to make it an official part of the timeline. But we'll see how that goes, because I've heard some rumours that they're already abandoning parts of that because people didn't react too well. But fingers crossed, it'd be cool. But this is the role-playing game sourcebook. They released several others. They released a Planet's Guide. I believe there were a couple of adventures set in this setting, but this was the main sourcebook. So let's flip over to the back cover. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire Sourcebook by Peter Schweighofer, the official companion to the novel Shadows of the Empire. After his defeat on Cloud City, Luke Skywalker finds himself a pawn in a deadly game between Darth Vader and the mysterious and dangerous leader of the criminal organization Black Sun. Confronted by bounty hunters and his own worst fears, Luke must lead a daring rescue mission to Emperor Palpatine's throne world of Coruscant, where he'll confront the heroes who lurk in the shadows of the Empire. So here's the role-playing game using the name Coruscant, long before it appeared in The Phantom Menace, or 3 years before. That's not too long, I suppose. But it appeared in the role-playing games and the novels and everything before it appeared in the movies. And it's a standard West End game sourcebook. It's a very nice sourcebook. By this point, they were producing some very lovely artwork. And because this was a multimedia project, there were a lot of artists at Lucasfilm targeting this. So we've got an introduction between Empire and Jedi, so it tells you where it's set. The stage is set. It is a dark time for the Rebel Alliance. Despite their victory against the Imperial Death Star at the Battle of Yavin 3 years ago, the Rebels have been driven back, defeated at Hoth, and forced to relocate their main command center. So it's setting up the universe, and we're straight on with characters, with a rather bad picture of Luke Skywalker. I don't quite know what he's doing with his neck there, dislocating it. Maybe it's some kind of force power he has. So we've got stats for Luke Skywalker, putting his skill levels somewhere in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. We've got Princess Leia, along with a small story sort of detailing things, and a nice piece of artwork there of her and Chewbacca watching Han be lowered into the carbonite pit. We've got Chewbacca, who never changes too much. We've got Lando, C-3PO and R2-D2 as usual. Now this is one of the problems with the West End Game sourcebooks, where they will repeat a lot of stats. So C-3PO and R2-D2 probably don't change that much between their introduction in A New Hope and the end of Return of the Jedi. They're droids, they maybe get an extra pip or two in skills, but they would be repeated again and again in sourcebooks. So you had them over and over again. They were in the main rules, I'm pretty sure, but here they are once again. The worst culprit for appearance in sourcebooks was always the Imperial Star Destroyer. We'll see if it appears later, but it appeared in so many sourcebooks, the exact same stats, they just reprinted over and over again. How many times did you need that? And the terrible thing is, certain things which were more useful in play, things like the Imperial Shuttle, the Tidarium, the Lambda class, were only published in a single sourcebook. I think it was the Heir to the Empire sourcebook. So a very useful ship, something the players in a role-playing game might grab and steal quite often, was only in one place. But the Star Destroyer, the high weapon to use against the players, which they would never be able to defeat, you just saw again and again and again. So, while they produced very nice sourcebooks, West End Games were guilty of just reprinting stuff. We're on to Rogue Squadron, so we've got Wedge Antilles and some other pilots here, which I've never heard of before. Will Scotian, Dix Rivan, Wes Jansen, I recognise that name, Chief, the Bothan Spynet. Many Bothans died to bring us this information. So, Koth Milan, the Assistant Consul General for the Bothan Trade Mission. And introducing the Bothans into the role-playing game for the first time. And then we're on to the Empire. So, Darth Vader appearing once again. Emperor Palpatine. Again, I can't imagine their skills changing much between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, especially without needing a pit stop in this sourcebook to show us what they're like again. Coruscant guards appearing for the first time. A few other Imperial officers, I won't go into all of them. And then we've got details of Black Sun, which is one of the many galactic criminal empires, because they introduced yet another one in the computer game Empire at War, which was a galaxy-spanning criminal empire. We've got Black Sun, we've got the Hutts. There's just so many different galaxy-spanning criminal empires appearing within Star Wars. I would have liked if they'd just stuck as one or had them become each other. But Black Sun's quite cool. It goes through the details of who leads it. Prince Zizor here. His android human replicant bodyguard Guri. And then we go through their operations, so laying out how they are. Beneath Zizor, we've got the Vigos, so sort of chief, almost generals within the criminal. Durga the Hutt. Kretar. Lunay. Just lots and lots of one. Perit, a Mon Calamari Vigo. Sprax, let's see, a Nal Roni. And then we've got assassins, guards, and underlings. Again, more short stories setting the scene. We've got strength skills, Teras Kasai. So actually detailing how Teras Kasai, the Star Wars martial arts, works. We've got Fringe and the introduction of Dash Rendar, who is the protagonist of Shadows of the Empire. He's a hotshot pilot with his own souped-up freighter. And a droid sidekick, Lebo, who is his Chewbacca / R2-D2. We've got Jabba the Hutt, Jabba's swoop gang. Now I certainly hope that's Big Giz rather than Big Jizz. Big Giz's swoop troopers. If I wanted to know the pronunciation, I just realised there was probably an audiobook of this I should have listened to. We've got bounty hunters here. Boosh, because one of the things that Shadows of the Empire does is introduce how Leia gets hold of the bounty hunter armor she wears to sneak into Jabba's palace. It really does fill in a number of the gaps. Snoover, a dishonored Wookiee bounty hunter, which Chewbacca disguises himself as by giving his hair a flat top cut at some point. Various characters, various planets, with Bothawi, Coruscant, including the Imperial Palace, Lord Vader's castle, Zizor's palace. In Star Wars, it was always going to have Darth Vader having a castle, and they put it on Coruscant in here. But obviously, in later things, Rogue One, they've moved it to the lava planet of... No, I've forgotten. The one from the end of Episode 3. Kothlis. And the Kothlis Shadowport. Various moons and cities. Alien species, so we've got detailing Feline, which Prince Zizor is. How they can manipulate things using their attraction pheromones. We've got near humans, the Eti. You've got the UBs, near humans Epicanthics. We've got different types of droids, so the ASP-7 worker droid, which then went on to appear in the Star Wars special editions. Because that's how well linked in these were. Because if you watch A New Hope, the special edition version, as Luke and Ben Kenobi arrive in Mos Eisley, you can see Dash Rendar's Outrider, his YT-2400, taking off and flying away. They had linked everything in from Shadows of the Empire into the movies. So although it's a multimedia project, it's perhaps the most official thing they ever did. Although I believe now Disney has voted it as unofficial once more, non-canon, part of the Legends multiverse. We've got equipment, including camouflage netting so you can hide a fighter, Coruscant guard armor, hyperbaric medical chambers, lots of really nice stuff, paragliders, flitters, swoops. We're onto the starships, and we have the Millennium Falcon, seeing its stats once again. I would imagine no different at all to those stats we've seen so many times before. We've got the Outrider, the modified Corellian YT-2400, like a Millennium Falcon turned on its side with the cockpit slapped on the end of its mandibles. Although we don't have an unmodified YT-2400, which would probably be more useful for players so they could have access to another Star Wars stock freighter. The Stinger, the Soprosa, and then we've got the Virago, which is a modified Mandel Motors Starfighter Assault Fighter, which is the design that Knights of the Old Republic 2 used for the Basilisk War Droid, varying massively from the comics. Skyhooks, giant sort of orbiting spaceports which are hooked to the surface by a space elevator. It's got an illustration of a Star Destroyer there, but no stats. And then on the back we've got an advert for Live Action Adventures. So that's the Shadows of the Empire Sourcebook. It's something which I really like. I love the period when it was set up. Obviously the special editions were just about to come out, but we'd had a decade and a half without Star Wars films, and this felt really, really sort of official. Star Wars was all of a buzz once again. We were going to get to see the films, but with new special effects. We were going to get the prequel trilogy was going to come out in a couple of years' time. Phantom Menace was in production. And we were getting this multimedia project. We were getting a new video game based on a new storyline. It was really, really cool. And I do find it a dreadful pity that Disney has eliminated it from the canon. But I think I've rambled on quite long enough as usual. So please like and subscribe if you like me doing this kind of thing, as it does me massive favours with the YouTube algorithms. They look pleasingly upon me for your actions. But, as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.